All right, I'm a Hebrew Israelite coming out the Holy Scriptures of the Holy Bible to edify the elect of the children of Israel, um, with the understanding of the repentance unto the so-called African Americans, so-called Haitians, Jamaicans, Puerto Ricans, Latinos, and Native American Indians, so-called Jamaicans, Haitians, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Dominicans, and Cubans, so-called Native and Seminole Indians of the children of Yahshua Allah. Um, this Deuteronomy 33, based on the blessing of the 12 tribes of Israel, starting this Deuteronomy 33 and 6. Deuteronomy 33 and 6. Deuteronomy 33 and 6. Let Reuben live. Right. Why let Reuben live? Let Reuben live because the first Reubenite, which is the so-called Seminole Indians, Seminole Indians, so-called Creek Indians, so-called runaway Indians, Seminole Indians, so-called Seminole Native Seminole Indians to America, Creek Indians. They are the descendant of the tribe of Hebrew Israelites, which so-called Jewish white people call themselves their nationality, but they the tribe of Reuben, according to the Holy Scriptures. And the Lord said, what? Let Reuben live, because the first Reubenite committed adultery with his forefather, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob is the forefather of 12 sons of Israel. That's according to what? Genesis 49. Genesis 49. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. So the Lord, right? So, and Reuben is the firstborn. So the Lord of Jacob 12 sons, and Reuben, let Reuben live. Right, let Reuben live, because the first Reubenite committed adultery, which is against look, Exodus, the law, Exodus 20 and 14. Exodus 20 and 14. Thou shalt not commit adultery, and whosoever commit adultery the adulterer and adulteress shall be put to death. So the Lord then killed the first Reubenite when he committed adultery with Jacob, concubine, one of his wives, which is adultery, having sex with another man's woman. He had sex with Jacob, Israel, his father's wife, one of his wives, Reuben, because he was unstable as water. The Lord said, Reuben, unstable as water, and strong and unstable, not able to hold his capacity. So the Lord said, and not die, right? Not be put to death for his sin, which adultery is a sin unto death, under the law and the covenant of God's chosen people, that they took a covenant of their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and not die, they not be put to death, so that he can raise up his tribe, the seed of Abraham. Because the Lord said, the Lord said what in Jeremiah? If the son shall cease from being, if his ordinance cease from being the sun, if you can stop the sun from coming up in the moon, then he will cease from, the children of Israel will cease from being his people. So the Lord said, let Reuben live and not die from the sin that he did, which is adultery unto death. Having sex with another man's woman is a sin unto death, and not die. And let not his men be few, right? Because his men was warriors. Reuben was and this right, his sons is warriors, and they the sons of Jacob. The Lord said what? Right, Reuben is the children of Israel. They was fit for the battle. The Reubenite. the sons, this First Corinthians 5 and 18, the sons of Reuben and the Gadites and half tribe of Manasseh of violent men, right? Violent men, men able to bear buckler and sword, and to shoot with bow and skillful in war, were 440,703 score and went out to the war. So that's talking about what? That separated themselves unto King David, the Reubenites, the sons of Jacob, the firstborn son of Jacob, and his descendants. So the Lord said, let not his sons be few because of that. And he ain't gonna die from him committing adultery. That's the so-called Seminole Indians, which they was fighting on the shores of America with the Spaniards and killing them. The British troops, they was killing them. A lot of times, so-called Native Seminole Indians, that's brothers to the so-called Native American Indians and so-called Negroes, Cubans, so-called Dominicans, and so-called Haitians. So the Lord said, what? Which is the tribes of Israel, right? And this is, right, so that's Reuben, the so-called Seminole Indians. And this is the blessing of Judah, right? Judah, the blessing of Judah. Judah is the so-called African-American Negro, so-called black African-American Negro. And he said here, right here, hear Yahweh, the voice of Judah. Right here, the voice of Judah. Right here, hear his actions. The voice is the voice is what comes from him. Which Judah mean in the Hebrew, Yahweh meaning praise. Thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. So hear his voice. The Lord said, hear his voice, which is right, Judah, and bring him unto his people, right? Let him be gathered with his people, which is the king tribe. The tribe David, King David was the tribe of Judah. Yahweh in the Hebrew. He was the tribe of Judah, which is brothers, so-called African American Negroes, brother the Seminole Indians. Jesus the Christ come out of the tribe of Judah, the Savior of the world of Israel for the remission of sins. Of the Holy Scriptures of Matthew, Mark, Luke, James, John, that tell you of repentance for the children of Israel for the remission of sins, to be brought back to the keeping the commandments through his blood covenant that he shed, from transgressing the sin into sinful breaking God's commandments, and repenting back to his keeping his commandments through his blood covenant of Jesus the Christ, Yahweh, so-called African American Negro, of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So Judah, hear his voice, the voice, his command, because Judah was the lawgiver, which was the king tribe. King David was a Judite, and he come of king. He was the king of Israel, because the Lord took the kingdom from Saul or Benjamin and gave it to Judah and made a covenant with his sons that they shall never be suffer man to sit upon his throne. The tribe of Judah. That's what the Lord said. It's Second Kings. This Second Kings, Second Kings, First Kings 11 and 32. But he shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. Right, and Jerusalem is the tribe of Judah. That was his inheritance, Judah and Jerusalem. So that was the tribe of the chosen, the head tribe of the children of Israel, which is the so-called African Americans, Haitians, Jamaicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Mexicans, Native and Seminole Indians, and so-called Argentinians, Chileans, so-called Guatemala to Panama, so-called Colombians to Uruguay, so-called Brazilians, and Seminole and Native American Indians, and so-called Haitian, Jamaicans, West Indians, Barbados, Israelites. So the Lord said, what? And this is the blessing of Judah. Hear Yahweh, the voice of Judah, and bring him into his people, right? Because Judah has the king. King David was brought into his people. They separated themselves unto David in the wilderness. right? Let his hands be sufficient for him. Right? Let his strength be sufficient for him. For his nation. The Lord said, Jerusalem shall be thy strength. That's Zechariah. Zechariah, Jerusalem shall be thy strength. Zechariah, Zechariah, Zechariah. Right, this Zechariah 5, this Zechariah 12 and 5. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength. So the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength. That's what the Lord's saying. The inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength. So the Lord said what? And bring him into his people, and let his hands be sufficient for him. Right? Let his strength be sufficient for him. His nation be sufficient for him. Right? Be worthy, be his strength be sufficient with him. Right? So the Lord said what? And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength, and Yahweh of hosts their God. Right? And be thou in help to him from his enemies. Right? It's talking about King David. And the Yahweh of hosts their God. Right? The governors of Judah. And that was King David. He's the king of Israel. And so the Lord said what? Right. David said what? When the enemy surrounded him, when the enemy surrounded him, he cried unto the Most High. He sought to the Most High God, and the Most High delivered him from his mighty enemies. The Lord is my strength and my shield and my buckler. So that's talking about the so-called African American Negro. King David was a Jew from Jerusalem, which the so-called Jewish people say they the tribe of Judah, but the tribe of Judah was so-called African American Negro, black, so-called black man, African American Negro man, so-called Afro American Negro male of the tribe of Judah. That's what King David was, the king of Israel, of the Hebrew Israelite race, of the nation of Israel. And that's the tribe of Judah. And of Levi, he said, let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One. Right? The Thummim and the Urim was symbols of the breastplate of the so-called priests, the Haitian, the Levitical priests. This Leviticus, this Exodus 26, Exodus 26. Right, so the Lord said, right, Shalaki, this Exodus 27 and 30, and thou shalt put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be upon Aaron's heart when he goeth in before Yahweh, and Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before Yahweh continually. Right? Aaron was a tribe of Levi, the so-called Haitian priests, the so-called Haitians, which is the Levi, the so-called Haitians, they the priest. Moses was a priest, a so-called Moses was a so-called Haitian, which was a priest. Let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, right? That pure one, because Levi, the law is holy. Romans 7 and 12. The law is holy, just, and good. So they was keeping God's commandments, the priesthood, the sanctification of the holy priesthood, whom thou didst prove at Massa, which was Moses, whom thou didst prove, because Moses was at Massa, which Moses was Moses was subject unto the Most High's commandment. Moses taught all the congregation of children of Israel, the so-called Haitians. That means Lord Yah means joined to the Most High. So they was joined to the Lord, and with him, with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah. So Moses spoke scarcely for the children of Israel. That's why he couldn't make it to the Holy Land. He couldn't make it to Jerusalem, but he died on the other side of Jordan from Reuben inheritance. Who said unto his father and to his mother, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren, nor knew his own children, for they have observed thy word. Right? So Levi have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brother, nor knew his own children. Right? So Levi was separated unto the priesthood, the firstborn of Levi. They had to do the priesthood continually, and all the tribes amongst the children of Israel in their inheritance, which was a law. The Levites he said of the priests. The Most High said the priesthood to the Levites, for they have observed thy word. Right? They observed the commandments and law, statutes, and commandments, the priests. That's who was the priest in the time of Jesus Christ, so-called 2,000 years ago, which is Jesus Christ, Yahweh, so-called African-American Negroes, so-called Haitian priests, a lot of them chief priests, Pharisees, Essenes, Sadducees, and Sadducees was so-called Haitian chief priests when the Romans was ruling. The so-called white man, the Romans, Augustus Caesar, and the Romans, Edomites, so-called white people, and kept thy covenant, or kept the covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They shall teach Jacob thy judgments. Right? So the Levites promoted the law, statutes, and commandments. The Lord said, Leviticus 19:15, ye shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. God's covenant of his commandments, which he made with Israel in Mount Horeb, and the Levitical priests of their forefathers, of the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the instructions, and Israel thy law, right? Israel thy law, the covenant of their forefathers. They shall put incense before thee, right? Sacrifices, which is in the law of sacrifices, doing keeping the whole sacrifices, burnt sacrifices unto the Most High God, Yahweh, and whole burnt sacrifice upon thy altars for the remission of sins. To take away sins that was going off contrary to wrongdoings. Bless Yahweh his substance, and create his substance, which is 10%. The Levites supposed to get 10% of inheritance of all the children of Israel. Bless his substance and accept the works of his hands. Right? And accept the works of his hands, right? The Lord accepted his function to sacrifice the animals on the altar unto the Most High Yahweh, because they were sanctified and holy and clean. They were so clean they couldn't have a woman that had sex with another man. They had to get virgins. That was the priesthood. Smite through the loins of them that rise against him, and of them that hate him, that they rise not again. All right, and that's what the Lord gonna do. That's why the Lord said that all this bloodshed shall be upon you, even from the righteous blood of Zacharias, whom you slew between the altar, which was a Levite. Zacharias was a priest, Levite. So the Lord gonna kill. The Lord killed the arm. He did away with Jerusalem in 70 AD for the idol shepherd. And the Lord said, what? And of Joseph, he said, blessed of Yahweh be his land. Right? This was a blessing. This wasn't prophecy. This was talking about the children of Israel, their inheritance, based on how they would be in their inheritance. So the Lord said, what? In the land of Israel, the nation of Israel. And right, the Lord said, what? And of Joseph, right? Shalakia, right? So the Levites are the priests. And of Benjamin, he said, the beloved of Yahweh shall dwell in safety by him. Right? Benjamin is the so-called Jamaicans. And the inheritance of the so-called Jamaicans, they was the 12 tribe of the children of Israel inheritance, which they tribes was set according to their tribes. Benjamin was in Jerusalem. It was right off from Jerusalem. So the Lord said, what and of Benjamin he said the beloved of Yahweh. Right? That's what Paul get that. Paul was a Benjaminite, and Peter said, my beloved brother Paul, our beloved brother Paul, right? Beloved, because it's the son of my right hand, beloved. Right hand is God's righteousness, his commandments, son of his love, son of his commandments. So the Lord said, what? The beloved of Yahweh shall dwell in safety by him, shall dwell in safety by him, right? So right next to him, Benjamin was right across from Judah. So the Most High saying Yahweh by him, because Yahweh is a so-called African-American Negro. Yahweh is, he exists. Judah, Yahweh is Yahweh the in the Hebrew, the Most High God. Yahweh the is Yahweh's praise, exaltation. So Yahweh is the image of a so-called Negro, African-American, more of the tribe of Judah. And Benjamin inheritance was right next to the tribe of Judah. Once you see a 12 tribe, the 12 tribe, the 12 tribe, the 12 tribes of the children of Israel inheritance. Once they was in Jerusalem, they Benjamin, and of Benjamin, which is the so-called Jamaicans, the so-called West Indians, Barbados, Caribbean islands, so-called Jamaican, West Indians, Jamaican West Indians, Barbados West Indians, Jamaicans, the so-called uh the so-called Barbados, the so-called Jamaicans was right, and this is the heritage. And Benjamin is right next to Judah, so-called Jamaican. So the Lord said, right, you see Benjamin, right, Benjamin. So it said what? And he said, the beloved of Yahweh shall dwell in safety by him. Right, dwell in safety by him, which is Jerusalem. Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, was right by the Most High, right by Judah and Jerusalem, which God was at. Yahweh had his priest, the temple at, literally dwell in safety by him, right? Right next to Jerusalem, where Yahweh was at. Yahweh spoke to the children of Israel through mainly Jerusalem, his headquarters of his nation. And the Lord said, what? And Yahweh shall cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders, right? All the day long. Because Benjamin, he shall be covered, he shall be covered all the day long in God's commandments, because he was right by Jerusalem. So Benjamin stuck to the Most High longer, because the only tribe that was left in Jerusalem was Benjamin and Levi. After the northern kingdom, Ephraim, and all the northern kingdom of north of Israel, which is Ephraim, Manasseh, Dan, Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, Naphtali, Reuben and Gad, and Simeon, they went into Assyria, into the Syrian captivity. The Syrians conquered Israel because they sinned. The curses of Deuteronomy 28:15 from them trespassing against the laws started to come upon the children of Israel. And it came, and the Assyrians, the so-called Arabs, conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. And they left to a mankind, which is Western Hemisphere, North, Central, South America. Once the time the Babylonians conquered Judah, Benjamin, Levi, the so-called Africans of Iraq, ancient Babylon, America's spiritual Babylon, Assyria, spiritual Assyria, because Egypt, northern, southern kingdom was oppressed together in America. So the Lord said, what? And cover him all the day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. Right? He's going to dwell between his shoulders, meaning the Lord going to cover him and keep him tightly to him. That's why so-called Jamaicans, they ways is just like the so-called black man, the so-called African-American Negro man. It's because Benjamin was uh, close to the so-called African American Negroes, and they were still with them, and they came on slave ships with the so-called African Americans during the transatlantic slave trade, so-called Jamaicans and Haitians, and Levi too. The Lord kept one tribe, which was Benjamin and Levites, the priests that was with Judah and Jerusalem. The Lord kept one tribe for a heritage of David. To, but the northern kingdom became a split, which is the Ephraim was the root, the head. Northern kingdom, the so-called Puerto Rican man, was the head of the northern kingdom of Israel. Was the split of their nation because they began to. The Lord broke the bands of their brotherhood, which is the commandments of the statutes and commandments that the Most High had. The 10th part of the city fell, and the third part, which is the commandments of the Holy Spirit of the Most High, His commandments of their head fell. And the Lord said, "What?" And of Joseph, He said, "Blessed of Yahweh be his land." Right? That's Samaria. Blessed be Yahweh Ephraim of his land, which was Samaria, which so-called Arabs at today, so-called Arabs be through Lebanon, and you can see how like certain fruitfulness of that land. But it ain't as it was when so-called original Puerto Ricans in that land, so-called Puerto Ricans, before they came to the North Central Caribbean islands. So the Lord said, "What?" And Joseph, He said, "Blessed of Yahweh be his land, for the precious things of heaven," right? The precious things of heaven, the precious things of exhaustion of heaven, which is exhaustion, the precious things of that sprout forth. For the dew is what water. It fertilized those things, which is talking about fruits, and of the deep that couches beneath, right? And of the deep that couches beneath, which is the soil, and that's what Ephraim get the tribe fruitful from, because they wives and their seed line can produce for so-called Puerto Ricans. They can produce for major sons and daughters. It be Puerto Rican Day parades in 3 different cities, with whole Puerto Rican Day parades with about hundreds of mil. I mean, uh, yeah, and once and at one time in different cities, Puerto Rican Day parades, and the so-called Puerto Ricans mean fruitful because they got the head of the strength of the Lord. So the Lord said, "What? For a dew for the deep that coucheth beneath, and for the precious fruits brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon." Right, and that's Samaria by at Joppa, which is by Lebanon, Samaria. So that's talking about Ephraim and Manasseh. Ephraim and Manasseh. Joseph is Ephraim and Manasseh. The so-called Cubans, which is Manasseh, and Ephraim, the so-called Puerto Ricans, because they had Joseph, Jacob's son. He brought them to be sons, just like Reuben and Simeon. And so the Lord said, "What? Uh, and for the precious thing put forth by the moon, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains," right? And that's Israel. The ancient mountains is the Garden of Eden. And for the precious things put, and for the chief things of the ancient mountains, right? The Holy Land, the ancient holy mountain, the ancient land, Eden, which was Adam, the first man, who he was in the Garden of Eden, which is the middle, so-called Middle East, which is Israel, or the so-called Jewish white people say that they are Jews and they are not, right? And for the precious things of the last of the everlasting hills, right? Because the Lord said His hill of Israel shall always be. The Lord said, well, and for the precious things of the earth and fullness thereof, and for the goodwill of him that dwelt in the bush, right? So the Lord produced major of His sons, because Joseph was split from his brothers. They sold him unto the Arabs and to the Africans. The Arabs sold him to the Africans, and he split from his brothers. So the first so-called Puerto Rican, the father of the so-called Puerto Ricans and Cubans, because the so-called Cubans and Puerto Ricans, they brothers. And the Lord said what? He was separated from his brothers, which they, according to Genesis, as Genesis and Genesis is Genesis like Genesis Genesis um is Genesis right. So these so-called Puerto Ricans were separated from their brothers. And the Lord said what? And right, Genesis 36. Genesis 36 and Genesis 36 and 10. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brothers envy him, but his father observed the sayings. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brother feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said unto him, here am I. And he said, go, I pray thee. So they sold Joseph, his brothers, so-called the first so-called Jamaicans, first so-called African American, the first so-called Cuban, the first so-called Seminole Indian, the first so-called Haitian, the first so-called Dominican, the first so-called Brazilian, Uruguay, the first so-called Argentinian, Chilean, the first they sold the first so-called Puerto Rican, Cuban, unto slavery. So the Lord said, what? And for the precious things of the earth and fullness thereof, and for the good will of him that dwelt in the bush. Right? He dwelt in the bush. And the bush means he dwelt in the bush. The bush is the bush he dwelt alone. He dwelt in the bush. Let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph. Right? The Lord said, Ephraim is the strength of his head, the power of the Most High God here that he put forth to, the strength of his, what he put forth to that tribe to extend their lineage of his extension of his power. So that's why Ephraim and the fruitful, they got the firstborn birthright from Reuben because he committed adultery. That's why the Lord said, let him live and not die. Ephraim got the firstborn birthright. So-called Puerto Rican, head of him that was right, and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren, right, who was separated from his brothers, right, that dwell in the bush, right. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, right. His exhaustion from him being separated from his brother, Lord gave him a lot of the tribes of the so-called Puerto Rican descendants. That's why they fruitful. And his glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns, right? His strengths are like the strengths of unicorns, right? His extensions are like the extensions of unicorns. How unicorn horn, they extend out from growth. That's how the so-called Puerto Ricans is. With them, right, his glory is like the firstling of his bullock. His horns are like the horns of unicorns. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth. Right? Push the people together to the ends of the earth. Right? The so-called Puerto Ricans. This was the only prophecy of the so-called Puerto Ricans that of this blessing that it prophesied. But all these indicate a sense of prophecy that of them on the North Central South America, but this was the only real prophecy that indicate that the so-called Puerto Ricans and Cubans will push each other. They will push the people together uh, to the ends of the earth. Yeah, they ain't even talking about a prophecy of North Central South. That's pushing them together to the ends of the earth. That's the Northern Kingdom. They pushed each other because Ephraim was the head of the Northern Kingdom. Shalaki. That was Ephraim, because Ephraim was the head of the Northern Kingdom. Because Jeroboam and Rehoboam, they split in 2 Kings 11:31. From Solomon transgressing, he lost the kingdom under David, Judah, and got two tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And Ephraim in the northern kingdom came to the western hemisphere after Assyrian captivity by the Arabs, the so-called Saudi Arabians. And they pushed them together, the northern kingdom, towards the ends of the earth. They left amongst the heathens. That's 15:41. Second Ezra 15:41. Then came they to a land which never mankind dwelt in North Central South America. Only people was on the Eastern Hemisphere, even the so-called white race, the so-called white man. And the Lord said, what? His glory is like the firstling to the ends of the earth. And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, right? So-called Puerto Ricans. And they are the thousands of Manasseh, right? Manasseh is the so-called Cubans. And of Zebulon, he said, rejoice, Zebulon, right? In thy going out, right? Why is Zebulon not going out? Because Zebulon heritage was according to by the sea coast. Zebulon and not going out, right? That's Zebulon and heritage, that the Lord set the ranks of the children of Israel according to their heritage. Zebulon and thy going out, right? And Issachar in thy tents, right? Issachar in thy tents, right? And Issachar in thy tents, which is in his dwelling, in Issachar dwelling, because Issachar can just pump. They can get products from Zebulon, and they can just dwell in their tents. So that's what the Lord said. They shall call the people unto the mountain, right? And they called together. They dwell amongst their tribe, Issachar and Zebulon. And thy going out, they shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, right? Offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas, right? The abundance of the seas, the sea coast, which was Lebanon, the sea coast, according to the Lord said, woe unto thee, um, woe unto her that is, um, that is full of all manner. Roughly paraphrasing, the Lord said, woe unto Lebanon. So the Lord said, what? That's Jeremiah. It's Jeremiah right, the Lord said right, said this Jeremiah right, the Lord said, woe to them that are of the sea coast. So the Lord, right, of the sea coast, that's talking about Zebulon and Asher. So the Lord said, and of Zebulon, right, for they shall call they the sacrifices of righteousness, which is unto the Most High, keeping the commandments. That's when Issachar and Zebulon was doing the commandments, the statutes and commandments of the Most High, but they went off into Canaanitistic traits of the East Africans that they didn't push out of Israel, the so-called East Africans, which is heathens, that the Lord gave us commandments, statutes not to do according to those heathen nations, other nations. They shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of treasures hid in the sand. Right, and of treasures that come from the sand. So that's Zebulon and Issachar. That's the coast of Asher, Tyre, the sand, coast of the beach. That's the so-called Mexicans and Guatemalans to Panama. The so-called Mexicans is Issachar, and Zebulon is so-called Guatemalans to Panama. They, right, and of Gad, he said, blessed be he that enlarged Gad. Right, blessed be he that enlarged Gad, open his arms up to Gad. Blessed be he that enlarged Gad. Blessed be he that opened his arms up to Gad. Blessed be he that who is blessed be he that enlarged Gad, meaning somebody that bowed to thee. The Lord said, thy brethren shall bow unto thee. They shall submit themselves unto thee. That's Judah. Thy brethren is Judah. It's talking about Judah. Blessed be Judah, the tribe of the kings of the northern, the southern kingdom, David. Gad is the so-called Native American Indians. Gad means troop, God in Hebrew, troop, warrior, military troop. Blessed be he that enlarged, open his arms to Gad, who accept Gad. He dwelleth as a lion, right? He'll be for you, ride with you. He dwell with you as a lion. He and bold, a troop. He teareth the arm with the right, and teareth the military in pieces, teareth the enemy's military in pieces. The so-called Native American Indian, they was known for wars with the British when they came to steal the land of America. So the Lord said, "Well, he teareth the arm, the army, the strength, with the crown of the head, right? With the crown, the king of the head, which is the ruler. The head is the ruler, which is Judah, David." King David, which separated himself unto King David in the wilderness, was Gad. This um first Chronicles, and of the Gadites, this First Chronicles 12:8, and of the Gadites, they're separated themselves, right? They separated from wickedness. They was into holy commandments. They was of the crown of the head. They separated themselves because they kept the commandments of the Most High, his statutes, his laws, statutes, and commandments, precepts, ordinances, testimonies, and judgments. And of the Gadites, there separated themselves unto David and unto the whole of the wilderness, men of might and men of war, fit for the battle, that could handle shield and buckler, whose faces were like the faces of lions. Right? They was lion. They was bold. They was fit for the battle. They was ready for the war, and was as swift as roes upon the mountains. Right? Swift. So the Lord said, "What? And of Gad, he said, blessed be he that enlarged Gad." Right? Judah. So Judah opened his arms to Gad, King David. They separated themselves unto David from Israel, and King David, opened his arms into Gad. He dwelled the tabernacle of David. Amos 9:11. The Lord rebuilding the southern northern kingdom back to the priesthood. He dwelleth as a lion, right? Bold. He ride with you as a lion, bold with you, loyal, and tear the arm, and tear the military, the enemy, in pieces, with the crown of the head, right? With the ruler of the head, with you, which is Judah. He was the crown of the head. He had the crown king, Judah, the so-called African American Negro. The Lord said, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise, right? King David, with the crown of the head, right? The crown of the leader, the crown of the leader, and he provided the first part for himself, right? Keeping the commandments of the head of the priesthood, as the head, the holy priesthood, the law, statutes, and commandments, precepts, ordinance, testimony, judgment. So he provided the first part of for himself, sacrifice unto the Lord, gave the sacrifices unto the Levites, according to the priesthood of the so-called Haitians. And because they're right, because they're in a portion of the lawgiver, right? There's a portion of the rulership, because there is a portion of the rulership was he seated. He had a portion of the rulership where he was seated, right? Where he's stationed at. Gad, the so-called Native American Indian, they had a portion as a military combatancy of the nation of Israel. And he came with the heads of the people, right? He came with the heads of the people unto David. They separated themselves unto David in the wilderness. And of the Gadites, they separated themselves unto David, King David, unto the whole, to the wilderness, the stronghold, to the wilderness, men of might, right? And men of war, right? The Lord said, and he came with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of Yahweh, right? Slaughtered their enemies who opposed their nature. The Philistines which despised thee round about. The so-called Africans, Montezarian, ancient Egyptians, the justice of the Yahweh and judgment with Israel, right? Keeping the commandments. You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. Leviticus 19 and 25. And Dan, he said, Dan is a lion's whelp, right? Dan is a lion's whelp, meaning Dan was fierce. Dan was rousy. They was fierce. Samson was a Danite. Samson, this movie coming out on the tribe of Dan called Samson. Samson was a Danite, which was he was rousy, he was fierce. He killed 1,000 Philistines, tall black African, Montezarian, tall black strong Africans with a jawbone of an ass. So he was a lion's whelp. Dan was frisky. Dan, the tribe of Dan, still in existence. They amongst the tribe of Manasseh. He shall leap from Bashan. So he shall leap from Bashan. He shall leap. He shall leap. He shall leap, and leap meaning to grow from Bashan, because Manasseh increased from Bashan. Right. So the Lord said, what? And he provided the first part for himself, because therein a portion of the lawgiver was he seated, and he in his judgments with Israel. So, and of Dan, he said, Dan is a lion's whelp. Right? Dan is a lion's whelp. Dan was frisky. Samson, who slew 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey. He slew 1,000 tall black Montezarian ancient Egyptians, which is the modern day Sudanese men, with one man with a jawbone, the jawbone of a dead horse. Literally slew him all. He took them all out. That was Dan. He was a lion's whelp, like Judah, frisky, like King David. He slew 50,000 men. David slew his 10,000s of thousands of thousands. David his 10,000s, and Saul his thousand. He shall leap from Bashan, right? Manasseh increased from Bashan. So Dan, the so-called Danites, is amongst the so-called Cubans, which is the tribe of Manasseh. So Dan and Manasseh is intermingled, the so-called Cubans. And Yoram Merrill, he a so-called Danite, which is a UFC fighter who basically undefeated in UFC. And of Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor. Right? O Naphtali, satisfied with favor. Why was Naphtali satisfied with favor? Because the Lord accepted Naphtali. Alright, and it's right. So when the Lord Genesis 49 is only talking about it's talking about the blessings and the cursing in the last days. The Lord said Jacob in the last days, that was the blessings and cursings that was coming upon the children of Israel, their last captivity. And this Naphtali, because Deuteronomy 33 is only talking about the Deuteronomy 33 is only talking about it's talk. I mean, Deuteronomy 33 is talking about the inheritance. It's only talking about the inheritance of tribes, telling of their ways, how they tribes is, and the landmasters of their tribes, and how they is, but Jacob telling you of the tribes what's going to happen to them in the last days, which is the last days from which was all the way from where their heritage was, when they already had their heritage before Israel was set up as a nation, before they went into captivity amongst the from the ends of the world, which the Lord said in Deuteronomy 28, I shall scatter thee from one end of heaven to the other. Deuteronomy 28:48, 64, Deuteronomy 28:64. So the Lord said, right, and that was the blessing, and let's go into Deuteronomy Genesis 49, tell you of the 12 tribes of Israel, the description of the blessing, I mean the curses and blessing of which they would consist of, and their heritage to indicate their tribe, their heritage. But Deuteronomy, Moses, that was Jacob, their forefather, Israel, telling them that the 12 sons of Jacob, his their blessing curses that was going to come upon them. But Moses told Deuteronomy 33, of which uh he spoke on the heritage of the 12 tribes of Israel, indicating them in that land, not the western hemisphere, north, central, south America. But Deuteronomy 33 indicated the heritage of the tribes of Israel, how they was in their ways according to their nation, and the northern and southern kingdom connected together, which was prophecy of which going to indicate their tribe, because Moses then he prophesied the inheritance, because he wasn't going to pass over the Jordan River. So Moses prophesied of the children of Israel, which Moses is Ezra's reincarnated. And that's why Moses always speak upon, the Lord said to Ezra, that do thou lovest this people more than me, because Moses was the a top prophet who indicated the 12 tribes of Israel to the commandments. And so Ezra's the prophet Ezra is Moses reincarnated. But this Naphtali, and of Naphtali, he said, oh Naphtali, satisfied with favor, right? Naphtali satisfied with favor, because they are the nation of God's chosen people, of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And the Lord chosen Naphtali to be a part of his tribes of the children of Israel. So that's why it's satisfied with favor. The Lord said, "What He delight in His people, He will beautify the meek with salvation, from deliverance of the lands of captivity, and full with the blessings of Yahweh." Right, full with the blessings of Yahweh, the extensions of the Most High from the land, because He increased Jerusalem, Middle East, and Naphtali land, because Mount Tabor and Kadesh, which was the tribe of heritage of Naphtali, they are mountains which the Lord extended their uh their existence according to. Possessed thou the west and the south. So Naphtali possessed thou the west and the south. The west is not talking about the western hemisphere, because because the possessed thou the west and the south, because the so-called the west is just the western hemisphere according to the eastern hemisphere. It's not the west direction, it's the western hemisphere, because it's the opposite of the eastern hemisphere. It's the opposite of the east, which is the middle. I mean, which is the east, which is what Jerusalem is. That's why, and it's on the other side. It's opposite of from the connection of the east, which is east is the east is left. It's left. I mean, it's right, going right. So it's opposite from the right. It's opposite from the right side. It's opposite from the right side of Judah, on the other side of it. So it's called the west. So it's not connected to the east. That's why it's called the Western Hemisphere, because the east is the Middle East. That's where life began, and from Adam, that's where the flood was started at, with Noah, and the ark, and Noah landed on Mount Ararat, which is Turkey, going up past Assyria, past Israel. So the Lord said, "This is the tribes of the children of Israel. How their tribes was: Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, Judah, Simeon, and Israel," which so-called white people that, well, they say they Jews and they are not Jews. They say they Jewish, but they not the tribe of Judah or Israelites, because they don't got their brothers. All these were the tribes of Israel, different tribes. but they was the same nation. They're the same nation. The so-called Naphtali is the so-called Mapuche Indians, the so-called Argentinians to Chileans. But possessed out of West and the South is talking about the West is left from Judah, from Israel, and South because it's connected to Judah. Because it's south of Shalaki is connected. It's south of Europe because north is Europe. North is Europe. South is down from north. South is this bottom. North is up, and east is right, and left is the west. So the Lord said, "Possessed out of west and the south, literally, which is amongst their tribes or their children of Israel. The west is going west, left, upwards, and what in the south, which is bottom, which is the compass compares the east because that's what all the landmass was connected to. So the Lord said it wasn't a western hemisphere. It wasn't a term called western or eastern hemisphere. The east was based on going right, and left was going west, and up is north, and south is bottom. So the Lord uh said possessed out of west and the south, the western hemisphere. The Lord not talking about the western hemisphere because is Naphtali, so-called Mapuche Indians and Chilean Indians, which is the so-called Mapuche and Argentinian Chilean people. They are um they are the descendants of the children of Israel. So their blessing consists of their heritage. This wasn't a blessing, this was a heritage. But their blessing cursing that came from Jacob, what he said going to be in the last days of their last times of them going in captivity, that nation. And they gathered from the north. So the Lord says the north because it's upward. And the south is bottom. So the Lord never he didn't indicate that South America is west south because he says it's just the south because it's the bottom. North it don't have two directions because the western hemisphere just referred to just like north. It don't have two directions unless it's to the connection of the Middle East because the West all landmass was one. It never broke off. So the Lord broke when Western Hemisphere became America and South America. It's got terminology called the West because it's opposite from the middle of the east, which is right from it. It cut off from it, so it's opposite of it, which is left. So we refer to it as West because it broke off from it of the east. So that's what's opposite of east. So the Lord told Naphtali to possess thou the west and the south. It's the south and the north is not the indication of the west and northwest. America is not north. America is northwest in the hemisphere. Literally, it's not the northwest because northwest would be to going upwards and west. It would be somewhere like in Europe towards towards Asia. That would be Asia, China, like Asia, north and west, literally. But and so the Lord said what? West and south, right? Possessed out of west and the south, right? Because the west is Naphtali tribe. That's what the Lord was saying. How you gonna bless him? Right? And of Asher, right? And Naphtali is the so-called Mapuche Indians. They not the Spanish, the indigenous tribes the indigenous tribes of Argentinian Chilean, which is so-called Argentinian Chilean Mapuche Indians. And there's a picture of women which which the children they doing drums on these they doing drums, they beating on the drums, these women of the so-called Mapuche Indians, which is brothers to so-called Haitians, so-called Jamaicans. And they got customs, the so-called Samoans and the so-called Polynesians, so-called Indonesians, so-called Polynesians, so-called Samoans, so-called Papua New Guineans, so-called Aborigines of Australia, so-called Indonesians, so-called Polynesians, so-called Papua New Guineans, so-called Aborigines of Australia, so-called so-called Hawaiians, so-called Hawaiians and Samoans, they never practiced the customs of Israel, but these so-called Mapuche Indians of indigenous so-called Argentinian Chilean, which was called Osirit, where the Northern Kingdom came to, starting with Naphtali. They went upwards from the tribe of Naphtali, south, which is South America, south of North of America. So the Lord said, "What the fringes in the border of that blue, the fringes of the border of that blue." The border blue because the blue represent what the blue represent a border, like a border. The blue is the border. So the Lord said, "What in the fringes is the north, the fringes is the all the commandments of 613 commandments of the covenant that our forefathers took." So the so-called Mapuche Indians, and which is so-called indigenous, not the so-called white people, Spaniards, which is not of the descendants of the so-called Argentinian, Chilean indigenous, and they got fringes on the border of their garments. Samoans never had fringes on their garments or their clothes. And these drums, these Paleo Hebrew uh, uh, symbols that come from ancient Paleo Hebrew on them drums. These so-called Mapuche Indians, which is just like the tribe of so-called Native American Indians of the tribe of Gad, which is a tribe God, which is the tribe of Israel that is on Deuteronomy 33 and 20, which I said. So the Lord said, "What and this is the image of them, the ancient Assyrian captivity of the Northern Kingdom, which is the so-called Spanish, so-called Latinos, indigenous so-called Native American Indians, indigenous so-called Puerto Ricans, indigenous so-called Cubans, indigenous so-called Hispanics, Latinos, and Native American Indians of North, Central, and South America, and the Caribbean islands, so-called Dominicans. They was in northern kingdoms, which is so-called Arabs, which is the Ishmaelites, and the drums. That's the same drum shape of the They got braids, which is the Israelites, a custom of the northern kingdom, which they always braid their hair in different. You see Native American Indian braids, because that's only consists of the custom of Israel. Nobody braided the hair, and Hamites they braid their hair, but it was towards balding their heads. That's why the Lord said we shouldn't do that. Like unto them, thou shalt not make baldness upon thy head, and murder the corners of thy head, circulate their head. But our braids, locks, and that was braids. So this drum that the Lord got, it's the same drum shape, which is circle, and they drum these this women of the so-called of the Northern Kingdom, and these the drums of sons. This a painting of a script of Levites who was cut out to show the indication of the 12 of the children of Israel. And yep, and and of and this right in Deuteronomy 33 and 24. And of Asher he said, "Let Asher be blessed." Right? Let Asher be blessed. Why Asher is blessed? The Lord said, "Let Asher be blessed. Let Asher be blessed." Right? Let Asher be blessed, because the Lord extended Asher because of the children of Israel, the sea coast of Lebanon. The Lord said, "O thou Lebanon." Asher is by the sea coast of Lebanon, which is mainly the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, where mainly all the trade routes throughout North Europe and throughout Asia and throughout places travel through. So the Lord said, "What?" And of Asher, he said, "Let," because Asher, thou hast waxed fat. Lebanon, thou hast waxed fat. Asher of, and of Asher, he said, "Let Asher be blessed with children," right? Blessed with descendants. Because the Lord made Asher the function of the Lebanon, the border coast where the ships at. to process the functions of the cargo that come throughout Israel. So the Lord said, "What? Let Asher be blessed with children. Let him be acceptable to his brothers." That's why they accepted him, because they did. Asher, let him be acceptable to his brothers, right? Because he did it the trade routes throughout Israel, and let him dip his foot in oil, right? Let his foot be where the oil products producing from North, Central, South America, where the main course is Lebanon, because it's wax fat. Thy shoes shall be iron and brass, right? At thy feet, thy shoes, and at the foot, because the trade cargo routes, brass and iron that come from cargo routes throughout Europe of Lebanon. So, and as thy days, which is Asher, because Asher, they deal with the sea coast. They dealt with the sea coast. So that's what the Lord, that's what the Lord made Asher produce for their tribe, their heritage. And the Lord said, "What? Asher, right? Asher, the sea coast, Lebanon, of the children of Israel, the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. Asher, right? Asher, and of Asher, and as thy days, so shall thy strength be. Thy strength be, right? Thy processing be, so shall thy strength be, right? Trust in Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, so shall thy strength. The Lord is my strength and my God. So shall thy commandments be. As the processing and as thy processing, so shall thy strength be, right? So shall you increase in the strength of the Lord, doing his commandments and his laws. And the Lord said, "What?" And that's Asher, the so-called Brazilian. Shalom, this the tribe Shalom.